The best salespeople in the world are the ones who do it without you even noticing. Everyone's a salesperson, especially if you're an entrepreneur. In the I'm Not Salesy podcast, join me, Cassie McKenzie, and my fabulous guests as we dive into the top strategies, mindset, and energetics around sales and money so that you can hear more, yes, I'm in, instead of crickets or getting ghosted. So if you're ready to fully book out your programs with aligned AF clients and have people chasing you down in your inbox, asking how to work with you, then subscribe to this podcast today and become not salesy too. Yay! Welcome to another episode of the I'm Not Salesy podcast. And I have a fun guest today. And you know how much I love talking about money, because if you have some weird money shit going on, it's going to affect your sales. Trust me on that one. And I can't wait to talk about this with my friend Lisa Drennon. I was actually on her podcast. She has a podcast called I Date Money. Or she's the founder of I Date Money, and she's a wealth activator who's been in the finance and insurance industry since 1987. Ooh, I love it. So she actually rewrote her money story and paid off $100,000 of debt in 6 months by implementing her Money Multiplier System. And I'm really excited to talk about this today because I was actually creating a training yesterday for one of my programs that I have in it. And it's so funny how everything always builds on itself, right? So Lisa, welcome so much. I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. I mean, it's a beautiful day every day, right? Every day is a vacation day. So
Yeah. Now, because one of the parts of your bio does say that your strategy has enabled you to retire 2.5 years early and move to your dream home at the beach as a millionaire. So where are you currently? What beach are you at? Because I'm at a beach too.
Melbourne Beach in Florida.
Oh, so you're not far from me. You're just on the other side of the state. So I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. I don't know if I forgot that and knew that before, but yay. So you get our after storms and we get your after storm.
Are you in the Tampa area?
Yeah, we live in St. Pete Beach,
Yeah,
so
love
like,
St. Pete. We were
yeah,
there in April. Beautiful, beautiful beach. Your sunsets are absolutely breathtaking.
they
I
are.
have a picture of the sunset, and our friends have a condo there, so we went in April and hung out for a few days. And my
Fun.
son goes there all the time. He's in Tampa, so
Yes.
it's beautiful. We're always like, we have a 5-year plan. If we move, maybe we'll want to move to St. Pete. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I love it. You know, it's funny you bring up the sunsets because when I moved to California, that's what I loved. I loved going and being at happy hour to see the sunset. And when we moved to Florida, we were on the East Coast in St. Augustine. And the problem with that is you don't get the sunset,
Mhm.
like you get the palm trees, but not the sunset. And I think all my years of partying in my 20s make me see sunrises. And I'm like, so it like kind of messes with my head and gives a trauma response from all the times that I'm like, oh my God, my hangover is going to be so bad today. I don't even drink anymore, but I still get that same kind of like PTSD.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks to the twisted tacos and Red Bull and vodkas back then. Anybody's from Atlanta may remember the twisted taco. But anyway,
Fun
I'm
time.
excited to dive into this today because um I really feel like a lot of times when people aren't making sales, or if you're hearing money objections like I can't afford that, it will shut you down if you don't really understand what's behind it on both sides. And I feel like a lot of times when people hear about like people, especially clients that come to me, don't understand how their own money hangups are actually being reflected in
Hmm.
the people in their inbox, and how they handle them. The trauma and money stories are affecting how they handle those quote unquote objections, or see it as an objection at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people are focused on money and they will grind and hustle to make more money, thinking, oh, if I just make this sales deal or I close this client, then my money problems will be solved. when in actuality, they're just creating this money cycle, this pit, if you may, of living check to check and
Mhm.
not realizing that, money can be measured in numbers and the numbers do matter. But
Yeah.
more importantly, it's about the wealth. It's about the activation of building an empire so that you have this wealth sustained. Like if you think of it as a security blanket, and if you focus on building wealth versus making money, it
Yeah.
totally changes your mindset.
Yeah, so how did that change that for you? Because I know you've got your money multiplier system, and I want you to go into that as well, like at some point during our conversation. But like, I'm so curious, how did this, as far as your story goes, how did this, impact you?
Well, Money and I, when I was a little girl, I loved to imagine things. I still do. And Money and I were friends. We were best friends. And one of the things I used to love when I was a little girl is finding money on the street. I lived down the
Who
street from,
doesn't? I still
I
love
know.
that.
So when I was like 7, 8 years old back in the 70s, I found $20. And there was a bar down the street from us. So, people, back then there was all cash, there was no cards. And people would just, go back out into their cars and pull their keys out of their pocket and their bills would fall. So I used to make a joke about it. Like we used to find $20 and I was very generous. I always shared it with my friends that I was with when I found money. And so I'd always imagine, like, what can I do with money? Like, this is so amazing. And my mom always said, well, money goes where money is. And I'm like, well, I want to be where money is. So as I grew, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, both sides. And my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was always teaching me to save and to give. So, we had the 80% was ours. And then she would say, well, you don't want to spend your 80% right away. Think about what you want to buy. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And she was saying, you don't have to spend it if you don't want to. Maybe you save it for something, in the future. So she
Mhm.
was always teaching me to think beyond today and like, what can you invest in? So I got curious about money and growing on trees and things like that. And when I realized when I got to be 11 years old, my mom told me that I needed to get a job babysitting because I had to buy my own school clothes. So
Mhm.
11 years old, I got my first full-time job in the summer babysitting a little boy across the street, 3 years old. And every single penny, I made $1 an hour. Every single penny went towards school clothes. I didn't have anything left to show for it. And there wasn't really a lot to buy. Like I had very little clothes.
Mhm.
And I'm working like 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day. I was literally working 40 hours a week and giving up my summer as a kid to for what? And
Right.
then then I would outgrow the clothes or they would go out of style and I'm like, this isn't right.
It sucks.
So it did. And I wanted to save like the 10%. And my mom's like, no, you can't afford to save the money. You can't afford to save money. So that message was kind of instilled in my
Right.
brain. You can't afford to save money because all of your money has to go for school clothes. So
Weird.
isn't it odd? Yeah. And I got resentful about saving. And then I got to the point as I grew older and I became 16 and I got a real job with, paying FICA tax and all that great stuff. She's
Awesome.
like, well, you need to save, you need to put away money because you need to buy a car because I can't be taking you to work all the time. It's like, okay. So then I saved, but all that money was for a car. So it was all gone once the car was purchased. So there was this message was mixed from my grandmother and from my mom,
Yeah, that's what I'm
save for the
thinking.
rainy day, save for something specifically, but always have the nest egg. Oh, but save all you need because you're going to need that. You're going to need that nest egg, that emergency fund.
Yeah.
Ended up copping an attitude. And when I became a single mom at 18, I was just like, I was working 2 jobs and literally living check to check.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford to buy my son clothes. And he was growing so fast. And,
Yeah.
we didn't go to Goodwill shops. That was looked down upon. You wouldn't catch me dead doing there. So like, we hit clearance racks and things like that. But
Yeah.
one of my friends said, well, you can get a store credit card. Pennies, JC Pennies will give you a store credit card. And I'm like, what's that? I didn't even know what credit was. And so I opened up a card. I remember going to the thing because I did layaway back then, right? So I
Yeah.
walked up to the desk and I'm like, oh, I want to apply for a card. So we did it and I was scared out of my mind. And then I got like a $500 limit, which was huge back in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, to an
I used it.
18-year-old.
Yeah. And I used it to buy clothes. And then it was like, oh, I can buy myself some clothes. And it became like this crutch. And
Yeah.
then before you know it, I wasn't paying it off and it built up. And, fast forward, I had somebody forge my name on a loan. My car almost got repossessed because of it. And then I had to file bankruptcy because I had over $32,000 worth of debt. And I was a bankruptcy paralegal at the time. And I was like, how
Mm.
stupid can I possibly be? And I finally, went and did it. And the judge said to me, "You're so young. How did this happen?" I go, "Well, unfortunate events. Someone stole it from me, and I racked up my own debt as a single parent." He's like, "I want you to promise me to go take financial courses." I said, "Okay, I will." So I got my career job at the government, and one of my first clients was a retiree turning 62. And he's like, "Hey," he goes, "do you like to read?" I'm like, "Absolutely." He goes, "Read the book, The Richest Man in Babylon." I said, "Okay." He goes, "If I would have read this book at your age, I would be a multimillionaire." I'd be like, "I'm all about that." So I started reading the book and implementing the principles. And at the same time, I was taking financial courses with Susie Orsman and Dave Ramsey. I was like integrated with all of their books and stuff. And just really like, okay, what I'm going to do, we had the money envelope system, is to create a system where I take all the money away from me. I'm going to have a little envelope for savings, for housing,
Mhm.
for food, for all the things. And then I would, whatever I had left, I could spend, but I had an attitude towards it because I was thinking, this is all I have left. So in my mind, because all my money was already allocated for, and I didn't really pay attention to where it was going, it was all on, like automatically done for me with the direct deposit. I didn't think I had anything. So I
Oh,
didn't have any fun. I didn't enjoy myself. If I went out to dinner, I felt really super guilty. And I was
oh,
like, okay,
yeah.
something needs to change, right? What
Yeah.
needs to change? So fast forward 20 years, I hit my 40s, and my husband would be like, "Let's sit down and look at your numbers." Every single day he'd sit down and look at his numbers, his investments. And
Good.
I'm not looking at my numbers because I can't touch it until I'm 62. Who cares? Who cares what my investments are doing? And not paying attention to your numbers, we need to pay attention to the numbers. And I refuse. So twice a year, I agreed to sit down and go over my numbers. And I don't remember when I became a millionaire. And it was just like, it didn't even, he's like, "Lisa," he goes, "you're a millionaire just with your money alone, not even combining our money together." And I was just like, it didn't even phase me. I was just like, okay, so what does that mean? All I could think about is I can't touch this money until I'm 59 and a half or 62 or whatever age I had in my head at that time. And I was just like, it didn't matter to me. I was just going to keep doing what I was doing
Yeah.
and feel deprived. So in August of 20, I became a certified financial coach, and I was introduced to fund money. So thus the Money Multiplier System was born, which consists of 10% fund money, 10% investment or savings, and 10% giving. And
Oh,
it totally changed my perspective and my relationship with money. And, for years and years, we were frenemies. Like, we were best friends when I was a kid, and then we were frenemies, and we, silent treatment. And then we went into, okay, you're the boss, I'm going to do what you do. But I was always in this grind and hustle mode. I mean, working at one point, I had 3 jobs. I was working full time and working 2 part-time jobs. And it was crazy, just grinding all this time and never feeling this satisfaction. And,
yeah.
in my
Of
40s,
course.
I ended up racking up $100,000 worth of debt because the paycheck
Again.
again, because I told myself I was stupid. I'm my own mean girl. So
What do you
working
think the
that,
pattern is that makes you come back to spending it all again? Because, I noticed in my own self that I had this pattern of like making a whole lot and losing it. I think we talked about this on the podcast with you, um, where, you know, I would be like super successful, build the money up, and then it had to go away for some reason, and then there was always enough there to get by to say, oh, look, 25,000 is in my savings account. But if I had 100 before and then it got down to, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
there's, I think, a lot of old subconscious, unconscious memories that are there then, and these patterns that really make us think it's not safe to hold a lot of money and to have a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that
And
was the thing. I was holding on to a lot of money, but I was spending a lot of money,
right.
and I wasn't paying attention. And one of the idioms I grew up with was, "You have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul."
Mhm.
So in my mind, my husband's very conservative, very frugal. He doesn't like to spend money. And when he does spend money, he spends it very wisely. So it was always no, 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 we can't do this. No, we can't do that. And it's just like, screw that. I've got my own money. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And growing up, my mom always told me no. Everything was no. I couldn't have birthday parties. I couldn't buy Jordache jeans.
Yeah.
Everything was no, no,
I
no.
love it.
And I got tired of being told no. And I think when I hit 40, because I wasn't taking me time,
Mhm.
I didn't have a system. I didn't have anything. Everything was for everybody else. I was such a
Yeah.
huge people pleaser. And I think, and I just worked more. I kept raising the bar, and I climbed the corporate ladder. I mean, I was very successful in my career, absolutely loved it. And, I was the world's best volunteer. And it was a
Mhm.
treasurer for three not-for-profits. And
Mhm.
I multiplied their money and was a really good steward over their money, and not realizing I was a good steward over my own money because I didn't pay attention. I just kept focusing on the debt and what I was doing. And
Mhm.
I finally in 21, I was like, I have to stop. And all of my debt was 0% credit cards, and ended up racking up 12.
Yeah.
And for good things. It's because, like, I always say debt is borrowing from your future self. You can't wait for what you want. So you're going to get it right now, and you're going to borrow from your future self. And then we'll wait until the bill comes. We'll worry about it later. And so I had done, like, I followed Dave Ramsey for years, did the baby steps with the snowball and all of that. And I had paid down the debt several times, and it kept going back up because every time I paid down a credit card, I'd get another 0% offer. I'd be like, oh, well, I'll just keep moving this money around and just create this, never ending cycle. And what happened is eventually those offers ran out, and the, interest started coming due. And at one point I even, took a personal loan and used my car as collateral. And you think that would have helped me stop, but it didn't. And I realized I needed help. And being in a
Like
world,
gamblers, where they're like, "Oh, let me go back down there and win the money. Let me win the money." Then they come back and they're like, "Damn, I didn't win the money. Now I'm still in the hole."
exactly, exactly. Gary the gambler, he's one of my archetypes. So I ended up hiring a money mindset coach that used art. And I had thousands of financial coaches in my circle, right? I mean, being a certified coach, we know coaches, right? But I was
Right.
like, I don't need help with the managing of the money and
Yeah.
plugging it in. I need help with the thought process. Like, why do I do this? What void
Yeah.
am I trying to fill? And I'm really good at hiding my feelings.
Yeah.
I hid from my feelings for so many years. And using art, I worked with Heidi Carter. She helped me draw out what my story was. Like, I wrote my story, I rewrote my story, and then I went through, like, with her meditation guide, we went through all these different scenarios of when I was a little kid, and realized that I had generational curses and I had to break the pattern. And it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with being irresponsible or not knowing. I mean, obviously, I've been working in the industry since 1987. So it wasn't I didn't know how, it's just because our subconscious is so powerful. And even when we don't realize it, we're making decisions based on past experiences, things that we learned growing up, and they weren't taught us. We just
Yeah.
caught it from observing.
Right.
So understanding that, and then choosing to replace that thought, that pattern, with a new pattern, so that I can stop that cycle.
Yeah.
That's the other half of the money multiplier system. So it's energetically combining the power of aromatherapy, which is using scent with breath and thoughts and feelings,
Yeah.
to change our money story, to understand, like, why we're doing what we're doing, and what's the void that we're trying to fill.
Ooh, fun.
And then, like, one of the things I like to talk about is our debt freeze. Like, I love to crush on debt. I have a monthly membership about crushing on debt. And if we focused as much effort on spending money as we did on saving money, we
Yeah.
would all be debt free.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're afraid to look at it, and then it just grows. You know what I mean? You can't, like a cavity. You can avoid going to the dentist, but it doesn't make your cavity go away, you know?
Exactly.
So I see that a lot too. And I feel like the patterns themselves, like people, I remember hearing gosh, like early, 2 or 3 years into my job, I was at a sales meeting with my district, and it was all these like high performing salespeople, but they were, you know, we were in Tennessee and Alabama, so they were like super laid back, you know. And there was this one guy, Mike, and I remember him saying like the only difference between a rut and a grave is how deep the hole is, you know. And so you get in this rut with money, or maybe you're in a job search, or maybe it's been a month or two without signing clients, or you've been hearing a lot of no's, or I can't afford it, you know, and you're not really sure like when you're ever when like the rain is going to stop, you know what I mean? And I feel like people end up digging themselves a big grave trying to overdo things to get out without stopping to think like, okay, how am I actually feeling about this? What are the thoughts going on? Why am I taking this action? You know, like what am I not looking at that I really need to look at? And also like there's a lot of stubbornness. Usually I see a lot of like really stubborn behavior where people are like, well, I really want, for example, like as a sales coach, I want to make more sales, or I don't want to have to get on sales calls. But then the person like doesn't, you know, has really fluffy content and it's not really speaking to any one person. It's really generalized and you can't get away with that anymore these days. And there's so much resistance to deciding, you know what I mean? Like so much resistance on taking those couple of steps to decide who you're speaking to, who you want to work with, like the exact type of person, and getting really specific in your content around that. And it's like, I'm like, this is the key to you making more sales. But you know, there's like so much stubbornness of like, well, oh, I've never had to do that before. And it's like, well, because what worked 6 months ago or a year ago doesn't work now. There's like a fuck ton of people online now doing exactly the same thing as you and saying the exact same thing as you. So how are you supposed to stand out? You know what I mean? Like it's so crazy. It's and I see that a lot like in you know, like people who are looking for jobs or looking for clients, and they're just striking out left and right. And I feel like eventually you've got to take a look at what are the thoughts going through your mind? Like what is driving you behind the scenes that you're not looking at? Or what kind of trauma could it be bringing up? What kind of like, you know, past experiences could be similar to this where you've kind of created these situations? Because I think the part of it is people don't want to admit that it's what they've created too,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes people don't even realize that they're doing it. It's just, they're just literally in survival mode. And when
Right.
we get out of survival mode and become partners with money and create a strategy that optimizes our financial system, that builds wealth, that's what it's all about. That's what multiplying money is all about. And that's what wealth activation is all about. It's just like taking everything and, thinking about money buckets, the old envelope system now done electronically, and allocating, every single piece of your expenses. I like to use percentages, and some coaches in the financial world say, oh, you can't use percentages. I'm like, no, percentages are the best thing, because especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're working on commissions, your
Yeah.
income is going to fluctuate. And you want to account for that. And a lot of times what we do is like, there's a lot of, 83% of the USA entrepreneurs are living check to check.
Yeah.
They can't pay their taxes. They're barely able to feed themselves because they're paying their staff first. They're building this team, and there's a lot of waste.
Yeah.
And one of the things I do is I zero in on that and do a wealth analysis to say, okay, this is where you can cut back and release, and until you grow. Like, one of the biggest things I see with my clients is they grow too fast. Everybody wants everything yesterday, but wealth takes time. You build wealth from the inside out. And when you become the person that is a multi six figure, 7, 8, 9 figure earner, visualize that you become that person. Then your current self, who's working towards that goal, is able to say, okay, this doesn't help me get to this goal.
Yeah.
And thinking about, creating a system where you can set it up so that you're enjoying your money, you're having your
Yeah.
fun money, you're paying yourself first, you're
Mhm.
realizing your profit, and all of your expenses are taken care of. And you're working with a team that matches where you are at this point. And when you can build slowly and strategically that way,
Yeah.
you're going to sustain growth. and you're going to expand. And, and that's where these, we hear about 7 generation companies. I know in Tampa, there's that 7 generation restaurant that, I can't think of the name of it right now. It's a Spanish restaurant. But they've been around for 7 generations.
Yeah.
And they have all these different special dining rooms, and they've built, and they started
Oh,
off
the
with,
Columbia.
yeah, yeah, the Columbia. And they just started off with that one small,
Mhm. In Ybor
restaurant.
City. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they added every generation, they added on and expanded. And now it's like historical, it's beautiful, and you get all these different experiences under this one umbrella. And that's what it's all about. If you think about our businesses, they're babies, we're birthing them, we're watching them grow. And I mean, you wouldn't force a baby to walk when it wasn't ready, but yet we want our businesses to run.
Right.
We want them to win. We wanted to win the marathon or the 10K without like learning how to crawl first.
Totally. It is so true though. And not paying any attention to the feedback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But really just implementing that strategy so that your wealth can be built as you're growing your company. And everyone thinks being an entrepreneur is so easy. Oh, well, they're making 6 figures, and yeah, but you don't know what they're doing in the background behind
Yeah.
the scenes,
You
you
really
know.
don't. You see, like, and I think that's the biggest shock for people who just started out, like, and why so few people actually make it. Because there's this short term, I need this big cash injection kind of mentality. Or you're like seeing what somebody's doing on the outside, but not really like people think it's just about taking action without thinking about the strategy behind it and the energetics behind it too. Like you might see this happened the other day where I decided to, like, I'm going to be doing, and I used to do this the same exact thing where I would have like one free master class, and then if I got the result I liked, then I was happy and I did one the next month, right? But if I didn't get the result, then I'm like, well, damn, that doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like, not really. Everybody's done that, right? And so like so now I'm going to be, because I love doing free events, I love talking to people, I love like being on the video and stuff. So I'm going to be doing a free master class at least once, maybe twice a month, ongoing, and launching that. And I have like a whole brand new offer suite, which I'm so excited about. And it's all really coming together with a strategy. But like so I launched this like the 3-day masterclass on Friday, and somebody signed up and their response was, oh, I want to do this, but don't make me get on Facebook. And I'm like, what? Like, you want the result, but getting on Facebook is going to be like the sticking point for you to have to go watch a free training somebody's doing. Like, on the outside, somebody might see me doing a 3-day training, because and this has a point, I promise. Like, her response back to me was, and I said, until LinkedIn has a really great option for hosting these kinds of events, unfortunately, we're dealing with Facebook. Like, whatever, it's a free platform. Because in my mind, my strategy is I'm working on creating, and I'm building my new Facebook group, but not just with just anybody, with people who actually want to hear what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
engage people. Instead of what I did when I first started my business, which was, hey, anybody with a credit card, come work with me. And then like nightmare clients, or you're just speaking to no one. You know what I mean? And so what on the outside, on the surface, this person might think, oh, well, she's just doing a live event. Can't you just do that on in LinkedIn Live? But for me, strategically, like, there are steps in my head where I'm like, I want this to do this, and then this to do that, and this to do that. And I'm pointing. I know you can't see me on a podcast, but like, there's so much more behind the scenes that these entrepreneurs who are making 6 and 7 figures like us, right? That, you know, the that your marketing department normally does at corporate for you. You don't see those steps. And entrepreneurship is not easy, because a lot of times people are only skimming the surface and seeing the surface level things of, well, I'll just go live one day and that's going to make my business. And it's not. It's a whole full commitment, just like with your money, like it's just like the baby learning to walk. And gosh, if I fell down, I mean, I still fall down. If people gave up on me walking, holy shit, I'd be out of luck, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think with sales, I mean, like I had a hiccup about sales. Like when I first started online in August of 20, I was like, how do you sell online? And that
Yeah,
sounds so easy to me. And as the, I changed my niche 3 times because I just wasn't
all
confident.
the time.
Yeah. And I kept thinking, oh, it's because I need help in sales. So I probably taken a lot of sales courses and not realizing that, sales is serving. And it took me a long time to even accept that and to think, okay, one of the things I see with my clients is they're afraid to price their packages accordingly and they want to give everything away for free. So
Yeah.
they're out there hustling and they're grinding, they're doing all these free launches every week, every 3 I'm like, stop,
Mhm.
stop. And then they're giving discounts and bonuses and all this extra. Like you are undervaluing your gifts, your talents, your
Mhm.
skill set, and really being confident in the way you're pricing your programs. And I know this was a struggle for me because when I first started, I didn't want to take advantage of people.
Yeah.
And that was one of my old money stories was that one side of my family were entrepreneurs and they were sleazy salesmen.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that sleazy salesman. And some of my friends would say, "Oh, you charge that much money?" And I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, there's a value." And my friends, your friends will never support you in your business. But
Right.
I'm like,
Um,
it
unless they
took
become entrepreneurs.
yeah, well, no,
Unless
some
they're
of them are. Some of
online.
them are, but they're that lower scale,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
They undervalue themselves because they have their own money hiccups. And I said, like I worked through a lot of layers using the aromatherapy and a few other tools that I have to peel back to say, like, this external validation, I don't need that. I need to be confident in what I am doing. And, I just recently changed my package and realizing that women in finances, they're not comfortable sharing that information in a group setting. So I went from a group setting to a one-to-one, and the VIP service is absolutely phenomenal. And
Mhm.
the stories that I hear and integrating the meditation and the mindset, the manifestation with the money activation with optimizing your systems
Yeah.
for business and personal, I found that all of them, because all of them are entrepreneurs, they were able to create their own way of selling that
Mhm.
felt good to them. And they didn't have to use Facebook or Instagram or TikTok if they chose not to. I mean, one of my clients does astrology, and she's doing this beautiful modality that doesn't involve a Facebook group where
Mhm.
she can share her expertise and get clients. And this is something that she struggled with for 3 years. And now, in less than 6 weeks, she's got a program offer. She's got something coming out in September, and she's rocking it. I mean, she's absolutely rocking it. Another one of my clients who doesn't like hate selling, she does this singing bowls thing, and she doesn't like to do social media. She wants to make those person to connection. So she's actually moved across state near this community where she gets to go in every single week and do these singing bowls and connect with
Yeah.
clients and then hold classes at her house.
Mhm. That's
And
awesome.
she's still doing some online, but it's not her forte.
Right.
So realizing that it's okay. Like I don't like launches. You'll never catch me in a workshop, hosting a workshop, or doing a live launch. I love my podcast. I love networking. I'll
Yeah.
do those sort of things. But if you
Mhm.
tell me, oh, let's do a virtual, party for 3 days, and someone said, oh, I was on someone's podcast and they're like, oh, you should so do a retreat in person. Go down to the Keys and do this retreat. No one's doing one on wealth activation. I'm like, yeah, maybe in 2024. We'll see. I might do an
Yeah.
in-person retreat. I'm like, but women aren't going to talk about their finances in person, let alone they don't do it on, they're not going to do it in a group. She's like, oh, you'd be surprised. And I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah.
I think so.
So it's something I'm contemplating. It's just kind of a thought. I don't know if it's my own or not, but we'll
Mhm.
see. I guess the audience can let me know if they would
Yeah.
come to a retreat and talk about money, talk about wealth activation for 3 days.
For sure. Well, I think the important thing is being open to doing, like what I'm hearing from both of us is figure out what you like to do and what works for you and do that. You know what I mean? Like for
Mhm.
me, I've found that it's so fun getting to know my audience through like these kinds of things, like events that I can, really be in front of you and do that versus and also like my desire is to work less, you know what I mean? And automate more things. And so this is part of like a bigger project, you know what I mean? Where there's less of the having to do the steps during the day and having more freedom in the business too, and being okay with that, like working fewer hours and having my business do some of the work for me. And I love that you brought up that that you like to do in-person event. Like this is why like I don't really love teaching launching in a specific way that's a one size fit all either, because what fits your personality might not work for somebody else, you know what I mean? And the type of client you want to work with might not love that either, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's I love that discussion. It's such a good takeaway. Do what works for you and what feels good, but that does not include saying, oh, it feels hard, it's not aligned. Okay, that's a topic for another podcast, but that is not what I'm saying here at all, at all. Because like sometimes, sometimes being an entrepreneur, having a coaching business, especially a business coaching business, you've got to be visible and you've got to be out there. So anyway, Lisa, I love this. Thank you so much. Come tell everybody where they can find you and learn about more about money and about your money system and start to implement your money multiplier system.
Yeah, absolutely. idatemoney.com.
Okay.
So
Cool.
head on over to idatemoney.com. There is a fun and interactive the money dating game where you get to choose your partner. There's 7 archetypes. Right now, the number one date is with Ian the investor, followed by Money
Ooh.
Maverick the money maker. So connect. There's this beautiful wealth activation money meditation that you need to do this before you go into the money dating game. This is going to set your mind and open up that subconscious, tapping into that subconscious so that you can really go through and meet the archetypes. And you're also going to identify like who you like, oh, wait a minute, that reminds me of me. And then
Yeah.
choose who you want to partner with to activate that wealth. And of
Hmm.
course, you'll get the money multiplier system when you join my Facebook group, Money Magnets, Wealthy Women, Sovereign Souls. And I also have my podcast. So tune in, rate the show. And yeah, you'll hear all kinds of beautiful money tips, strategies, and stories from entrepreneurs who are rocking it.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa, so much. Y'all go follow Lisa. Go get your money shit together and tell her Mama Cass sent you. Okay. Thank you so much. And I'm really happy we got to talk about all of this. Y'all have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye.